Okay, so why did no one tell me that Dark Phoenix slaps? Guys, it's not a bad movie. Problematic? Sure. But in hindsight, I think there's some sort of Kevin Feige magic afoot. So I'll be upfront. I came up with this theory super late in the night. Might I have been under some sort of influence? Sure. But the thing stands is that now that I'm sobered up, I still kind of think there's something here. Now, the theory that I'm about to propose is not necessarily foolproof. There's plenty of holes, and I am more than willing to admit that I was probably just super stoned when I came up with this theory. But, if anything, I think there are hints, and that I'm knocking on something if it's not what I'm presenting today. So, just to get it out of the way, there's going to be spoilers for Dark Phoenix, Captain Marvel, I guess, and WandaVision, and anything pretty much from the MCU, especially, everything that's going to happen coming up with WandaVision and, the big event that might happen in Phase 4. Now, I'm just doing this off the cuff. I'm actually reading my tweets. I'm going to have some visuals, but I don't want to do too much work on this. I just want to present it. Dark Phoenix was held back for many reasons. Big one being the introduction of Skrulls. Everyone knows that the main villains were meant to be the Skrulls and not whatever one-panel alien species Jessica Chastain was meant to be. The movie itself tells the story about Jean Grey dealing with this unknown force known as the Dark Phoenix. Been there, done that, but pay attention to the meta of everything that's going on. I'll refer you to a great video by YouTube theorist Matt Pat. He made a video about the Dark Phoenix and all the legal hubbubaloo that occurred about the Skrulls and how both movies were pretty much the exact same, so someone had to give, and ultimately seems that Disney outwon over Fox. So someone asked someone to change as much as possible to not seem alike. Now let's put a pin in that. So we all agree that X-Men Apocalypse was total shit, right? It had its moments, and going through some footage, I'm realizing now that maybe it's not complete shit, but it is terrible in the sense that right now, any superhero movie that is not an official Marvel Universe movie tends to try to emulate the look and feel of a Marvel film, but they can never get it because there's some sort of magic. You can tell you're looking at a MCU film versus an X-Men movie. So with the rewrites, the struggling Fox working with Disney, and the buyout on the horizon, why does this movie, one, look like a beautiful piece of art, and two, look like an MCU film? I mean, really look at it. It has a certain gloss about it. I don't know how to describe it, but if you put this movie next to Apocalypse, they don't seem to feel alike, even though we're using the same characters and everything is pretty much the same. So from my knowledge of comic book history, which is a total of 30-something years of comics, I'm pretty sure I got this part right, but when a comic book fails or is about to end, or they're gonna switch writers, they tend to leave that last story open-ended, either to continue on the next month, or in the case of like Doom Patrol or something, it gets outright canceled and then it gets picked up later. But there's always that little space where some writers decide to leave just enough room to say, okay, the story will continue from here, but who knows what's going to happen. Much like if Joss Whedon picked up from Chris Claremont's run, you feel there's continuity between the works, even though there's a dramatic change in between. So what's to say Kevin Feige isn't kind of using this trick to patch together the Fox X-Men universe with the MCU in order to at least get Pedro and Deadpool over on this side of the field? Now, this is all just, once again, just conjecture. I'm pretty sure this meeting is just in my head, but let's imagine for a minute that he goes and talks to Simon Kinberg, the producer and director of this last X-Men film, and he says, hey, look, I'm sorry, we're going to take the Skrulls, and I'm sorry, we might be owning X-Men soon, but here's all this money, we'll let you finish the movie the way you want to finish it, we'll help you out, we'll give you all the effects teams that we have at our disposal. So this movie is still very much a Fox film. Nothing is altered, but it's very much cleaned up to feel like a Marvel film. He says, in return, I'll ask for a list of things. Again, this is just me spitballing here. But the Dark Phoenix is known as a very powerful creature, this entity that is unknowable and always comes around. In fact, I'm pretty sure certain events kick off because something happened near Dark Phoenix. I can't really recall a certain comic that did it, but I'm pretty sure there's some history there. But for some reason in this movie, it's very vague. We know it's a powerful thing. We know it can't be controlled. All we know is that these aliens want to take this power for themselves. So they try to mess with Jean and all that storyline. Let's put a pin in that. There's a moment in the film where she's unleashing this power, and Scott Summers, Cyclops, reaches his hand out and it starts evaporating, almost as if it's more, I'm not saying it's this, but it's kind of like the Thanos snap, where like reality is breaking. His hand is being broken. So that's interesting to me. So one thing could be that Kevin Feige said something like, don't explain the powers, make it vague as you can, and we will take care of things on our end. We will explain things, maybe. Just hint that this thing is kind of reality bending. Another thing he could have asked for is Quicksilver, leave him out of it, or at least keep him out of harm's way. So while watching the movie, I kept an eye out on him because, last week kind of blew my mind, and I didn't finish this series of movies. I just never watched this one because I gave up on it because everyone was saying it was a bad movie. So, I wanted to know why he showed up, or if something in this movie had an answer, and I think it might. I paid attention to him, and it seems that he only shows up for the first mission to space with the rest of the X-Men. From what everyone kept saying, I just assumed after this he was written out and you just never hear from him again. The thing about a speedster is it's kind of hard to keep him around when he can solve a lot of problems. This isn't anything new from the other X-Men movies featuring this exact Quicksilver. He comes in, he does a little bit where he dances around with music, and then all of a sudden he's just gone. It's nothing abnormal, but this time around felt very different because he's knocked out, and then he's knocked out for the rest of the film, and then all of a sudden he comes back right at the tip-top end. You just see him walking around. It's a little odd, but if anything, it clocks him as being alive, and at least if anything, whatever happens, whatever takes him out of this reality, happens after this film. Now let's talk about Jean Grey. There's something interesting about Jean Grey in this movie. It's almost as if Feige also has to put her in red leather. And there's an argument that maybe it was just a nod to the first Dark Phoenix movie in X3. Sure, yeah. But also, why is this Jean Grey cosplaying as a Scarlet Witch in the first place if it's not also a nod to Wanda? She seems to look different from Jean Grey. Jean Grey in the comic books is usually associated with the colors green and yellow, and whenever she became the Dark Phoenix, her coloring first changed green to black, and then later on red to black, and yellow, I believe. So then, why all of a sudden is Jean Grey from X3 dressed up like the Scarlet Witch? It's a little odd. And my theory doesn't go as far as to suggest that this film is part of the theory that I'm suggesting, but I will say it's a bit odd. Okay, so why make Jean from Dark Phoenix look like Wanda from the MCU? I think it's to connect dots, not necessarily to connect them, unless, going full out there, he did it on purpose to because he's going to play the whole X-Men into the Marvel Universe, all the ones that we've known thus far. But it's more likely to just let the audience subconsciously know something in this movie is knocking next to whatever's happening in the MCU. Cut to this week on WandaVision.
Long lost bro get to squeeze his stinking sister to death or what?
She recast Pietro?
I don't know. It seemed to me like Dark Phoenix had this dread about it. Like, it's the ending, but nothing happened. This feels like a desperate world that, the last few X-Men movies have felt like it's a desperate world, especially Days of Future Past, where it was indeed a desperate world. But this one felt very sure about its end without acknowledging it. The way that Magneto kind of gave up being Magneto and he's just taking care of his own village, which there's precedents in the comics that he has done this. He's had his own island, his own meteor, where he does this. So there's that. But all these movies were originally supposed to lead up to the first X-Men movie. The big thing that changed it is the death of Raven, Mystique. No one was expecting that to happen. If you watch this movie before her death, it feels very much like it's about to almost link up to that first movie, even though it kind of warped reality with days of future past. Now imagine for a minute that this entity is knocking about the multiverse, and it first comes into contact with the X-Men universe, and we'll call it the Phoenix. We'll say it's the Phoenix. And it plays out very much like the Dark Phoenix saga, in where it takes over Jean Grey. She becomes villainess, like this movie kind of changed it up, in where she wasn't really evil. And by the end of the movie, she saves this universe without realizing that's what she did. What if this cosmic energy known as the Phoenix is the same energy that's taken hold of Westview on WandaVision? Back in 2015, one of my favorite Marvel comic events called Secret Wars came out, and it's a story about the multiverse folding in on itself and causing chaos in between worlds. This was a very clever way of merging the 616 Marvel universe of comics with the Ultimate Marvel comic line, which was the original home universe of one Miles Morales. To prepare for the jump, the writers on Miles' comic tried to finish up telling the story that they were telling in order to get ready for Battleworld. And before Miles could do anything else, his world merges with 616. They collide with each other, being the catalyst that starts the events of Secret Wars. But in the end of the event, Miles is the only one that safely makes it across the universe. So, what am I saying? Did I go off the deep end with all these shrooms and watch Dark Phoenix? Yes. But the point is, Miles is now a mainstay in the 616 universe like nothing had changed. Very much like Pietro this week on WandaVision. I don't think Kevin Feige would just let that old X-Men universe go out with a whimper. Remember, he cut his teeth on the first X-Men film. Even if he doesn't use these X-Men that we've come to know and love, he's still going to leave some room for them, and if anything, he's going to honor them. Maybe all we get is Evan Peters repping the Marvel Fox universe and Deadpool, and we'll get a new cast of mutants. If anything, we gave Dark Phoenix a bad rap. It came out in a time during which we knew that Disney bought Fox, and we decided to write it off. But maybe, I don't know, it feels like it's maybe never going to be touched on, but it feels like there's hints of something that happened on the X-Men side of the universe that could be helping along fracturing reality. And with Wanda doing her reality bending, perhaps that's how Pietro came to be in her story. I feel like the X-Men brushed up against whatever force is being set up for Phase 4. There is already an announcement that the story Secret Invasion is going to be told on Disney+, which is the story about the Skrulls and the reason why Kevin Feige took them from the X-Men movie. But there's this other theory going around that perhaps the storyline to Secret Wars will also be adapted, if not in Doctor Strange, in its own movie. So what's to say that maybe the Dark Phoenix movie was a prelude to not only the X-Men jumping over, but also to something bigger that's out there in the multiverse that could potentially collapse universes. And maybe we might even get a crossover between the Fox X-Men and the Marvel Avengers. Maybe they might make them stick around, and maybe we'll just have the Fox X-Men be the Marvel X-Men. Or we'll just get brand new stuff, because it feels like very much that Kevin Feige could be just doing his own thing. It just seems kind of odd that we're okay with Quicksilver and also J. Jonah Jameson. Can we talk about that for a minute? This WandaVision show takes place months before Spider-Man, Far From Home. So that would also imply that maybe her reality bending did something else. Also, his third movie is set to feature probably the last two incarnations of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. So even if those Spider-Men don't stick around, maybe the Fox X-Men could, or not. If anything, for sure, I think they could play a part. Again, if you watch this last movie, it feels very much like they're being set up for something else. Nobody overly important passed away. It seems like maybe Mystique was the sacrifice to make. Maybe Jennifer Lawrence was given this proposal of like, oh, you want to jump over to the Marvel Universe? And she's like, no, done. So it might not even be that. But it definitely feels like there's something there. But who knows? We could be seeing something in the works here soon with this upcoming episode this weekend. But hey, that's just a theory. Stone theory. I'm willing to be 100% wrong about this, and I pretty much just entertained myself for a couple of hours.